Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video I will show you how to paint Kiel-Saan for the TOHAA army. This will be painted more in a traditional way, so we will block all the base colors on the model and then we will do the wash over it, and for the last steps we will do the highlights. If you're interested, I will include all the paints in the description section down below, so you can know what I'm going to use during this paint job. So without further ado, let's start. I started with priming this model with the black paint. I used very thin coats when priming it black, and I try to achieve even coverage all around. Then I proceed in painting his armor. I think it is called symbiote armor, and I applied the first layer of the light sea blue. I went with very thin coats 2 times until I had good coverage all around. As you can see, I tried to block as much as I could. If you make any mistakes going over the black areas, don't be afraid, we will come back later and fix everything. Then I proceeded using a dark Prussian blue to try to paint the rest of the blue armor panels. And as well, I will try to follow the box art as much as I can here. So I will try to leave the ones that I'm going to paint white later. Next color that we need to block will be gray or off-white. So for this step I will first use a Celestra Grey, and I will paint all these little armor panels that I want to be white later. This is done with the two very thin coats. If this color is too transparent for you, do it in 3 very thin coats, but for me 2 were enough, and I had a good coverage so that I couldn't see any black under it. Next thing was to use the foul green to paint the rest of these little armor panels on his arms, and I painted his cape with this color. For all leather belts, sword, scabbard, and the holster for the gun, I used the Rhinox Hide, and I painted these parts with the 2 very thin coats. I actually put this paint on my wet palette, but it was too thick, so I added a few drops of water until I was satisfied with the flow, and then I applied them to the model. Now it is time to wash the whole model. I mixed 50-50 dark tone with the Quickshade wash medium, and then I went all over the model except on the black parts, because it's not needed to shade them, because they will naturally be shaded by themselves, and applied a very thick wash all over. Then I gave it a good 45 minutes for everything to be dried properly before I continued to the next step. Now I will start highlighting the model. I will go back to the light sea blue and just go back to this under armor and just try to bring this color back to its original state, because it went a little too darker with the wash. Then I pick up a sky blue, and this is going to be my highlight color. So I will try to use the tip of my brush or side of my brush as much as I can, and I will draw a little lines on these muscles just to create a very light highlight. For the blue armor panels, I used the color called Periscopes, and I just repainted 90% of the previous areas that I painted with the blue. I tried to avoid painting inside the recesses because I want those places to be intact and create my shadows. And then for the final highlight on this part of the model, I will use a sky blue, and this will be used only to do the edge highlight on these armor panels. So whenever there is possible, try to draw a very thin line just to form the edge and make these highlights. We are going to do a very similar thing as in previous step with white armor panels. So I will go back and repaint like 90% of the areas I painted before, but this time using Ulthuan Grey. And I will mostly focus on the raised areas and the areas that are mostly exposed to the light, and try to avoid painting inside all the recesses because I want all my shadows. And for the final highlight, I will pick up a pure white, and I will do edge highlight of these areas, and this will complete this white armor panel. When it comes to painting and highlighting the cape and the rest of these little armor panels on his arms, I will go back first to the foul green and just repaint these little armor panels and return them to their natural tone of color. And for the cape, I will focus mostly on the raised areas, and I will try to leave the recesses, all the areas that are not high enough, as my shadows. And then in the next step I will add very little white to this paint and create a tone of color that is a little brighter, and I will use this new color as my highlight. So I will go back on these little armor panels and do the edge highlight, and when I go back to the cape I will highlight the most raised area and the most raised folds of the cape, while leaving the lower areas as the shadows. Now it is time to create a worn leather effect on the leather parts, like the belts and the holster for the gun and these sheets for the sword. First thing that I will use will be a Doombull Brown, and I will use a stippling technique, trying to use the side of my brush and just try to stipple like a little damage on the leather. On the flat areas I will use the tip of my brush and just draw a few lines just to create scratches. Then I will move to a Skrag Brown, which will be my highlight paint, and I will do the same process as I did in the previous step, but this time I will make little smaller scratches and little smaller lines just to create the effect of the damage. Before I go to the next step, which will be to highlight all the black parts, I will do a little cleanup because everything that's left will mostly be black. So I pick up a black paint and just go all over those areas and just repaint them back to the black paint so that I can start highlighting from this point. I will first start highlighting the back of the cape. So I added a little of white to the black just to create create a very dark gray color. And then I went on these stripes that I left black on the cape, and I just did a very light highlight, but only on the most raised areas of this cape. And I highlighted, actually I just repainted the edges with this paint. Then I added a little more white, and I went again, but this time I went on much smaller areas. And for the next step, that will be to highlight all the black parts. It is done with the pure white paint, and I will do edge highlight on everything that is left black. So I will mostly use the side of my brush. I will try to make an angle like 45 to 90 degree between the surface and my brush, and try to draw very thin lines. When that is not possible, I will try to use the tip of my brush. This is the most important step, which will bring the model together, and it will tie everything to look very nice. So just take your time and go around and try to highlight every possible sharp edge that you can see on this model. Now we are getting close to finish this model, so we will start working on the little details. So I will use the fall green to paint his eyes and to repaint these decorative lines that he have on his chest. For the scope on the gun, I will use Gory Red, and just apply it in one very thin coat. So this is just a small detail, so if you don't have this red, any red will do the job. And now I will create the glaze from the light sea blue. So I will add like maybe 1 drop of paint and 3 or 4 drops of water. And on the box art it have like this frozen effect on the top of the gun. So I will just glaze like 2/3 on the top of the guns with this in a few little passes. And then I will do the same with the sky blue until I was satisfied with the effect, and then I will just repeat the highlights with the white. And then I'm going to move to the sword. I will just paint the whole sword with royal purple, and then I will add a few drops of white in it to create a lightly pinkish color. And with this I will only paint the edges of the sword and the cutting edge. And then I will pick up the pure white and just do the quick edge highlight on the cutting edge on the sword and on the top edge as well. And that's it, guys. I will transfer him to the base that I made before. If you're interested how, I made it same as I did my previous alien bases, just instead of using the blue paint I used the green tones. And I hope you like this video. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It will mean a lot to me, and it will help this channel grow. And if you have any comments and suggestions, or you would like to see any of the models being painted, please leave your comment in the section down below, and I will try to do my best. And that's all, guys. Thanks for watching, and stay safe, take care, and see you soon. Bye bye.